It started with a phone call I almost ignored. A woman's trembling voice said her daughter, Amara Lovo, had died 3 months ago, yet someone saw her walking home last night. I thought it was another grief story twisted by hope, the kind people tell themselves to stay sane. But there was something in her voice, that mix of fear and disbelief that you can't fake. By morning, I was on a bus heading toward the misty hills of Makanda. The town looked asleep under a gray sky, but whispers floated like ghosts. The girl who died twice. Everyone I met had a story. A taxi driver who swore she smiled at him in his rearview mirror. A market woman who claimed Amara bought bread from her days after her burial. I'd covered murders, disappearances, scandals, but this was different. It felt like walking into a nightmare that hadn't ended. Makanda wasn't big, but it breathed secrets. The kind that hide behind half-closed doors and side eyes in church. I found Amara's parents in a faded blue house at the end of a dirt road. Her mother's hands shook as she poured me tea. On the wall behind her, Amara's graduation photo smiled back at me, her eyes bright, alive. Her father barely spoke. He just pointed to the dam on a map and whispered, "They said they found her there, but I never saw her body." That sentence lingered in my mind like an echo. I asked for photos, police reports, anything. The mother hesitated, then opened a small box. Inside was Amara's silver bracelet, still stained with something brown and old. "They gave me this," she said, voice breaking. But not her. The next morning, I went to the cemetery with a local pastor. The graveyard was silent except for the buzz of flies. Amara's grave was fresh, her name carved in uneven letters. I remember thinking how lonely it looked, a young woman buried before she could live her story. The pastor crossed himself and said, "People say she walks here at night. I don't believe it, but sometimes I hear footsteps." When the family got permission to open the grave, I was there. Cameras ready, hands shaking. The coffin came up slow, dirt falling away like time peeling back truth. When they opened it, silence fell. No body, no bones, only stones and a torn university ID. Someone had buried lies in her place. And as her mother screamed, I realized this wasn't a ghost story. It was murder, and someone wanted it buried. At the university, a night watchman agreed to talk. His eyes darted around like the shadows were listening. "I saw her that night," he said. "She was with 2 men, one wore a red cap, the other carried something heavy. He didn't report it. He said he was scared." A week later, he found a dead bird on his doorstep, its wings tied together with thread. "They warned me to stay quiet," he whispered. He took me to the back of the lecture hall where the ground still looked disturbed. "They did something here," he said. My recorder picked up a faint hum, maybe wind, maybe something else. The air felt wrong. I walked away with a chill crawling down my neck. Amara's story wasn't just about death, it was about what people would do to silence truth. When I left the campus, I stopped by the police station. Files, photos, statements all neatly locked away under dust. But one thing stood out. In the evidence bag was Amara's silver bracelet. The same one her mother showed me the day before. 2 bracelets, identical, one given to her mother, one kept by police. Unless someone had made a copy. Or Amara had never really died. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of rain tapping on my window felt like whispers against glass. I replayed her mother's voice in my head. "They gave me this, but not her." The story was no longer about a ghost. It was about someone pretending to be one. The first real clue came from a gas station attendant named Cabello. He said he'd seen something strange one night, a barefoot girl walking alone under heavy rain. "She looked lost," he said, but she smiled when I called out. I didn't think much until he showed me the footage. The screen flickered with static, then I saw her. Amara. Same face, same silver bracelet. Her white blouse clung to her like wet paper, her hair stuck to her neck, and her eyes, they weren't empty. They were aware. She looked directly at the camera, as if she knew someone would one day see it. My stomach dropped. 3 months in the grave, and yet there she was alive, or something like it. The university corridors were colder now. I met one of her old lecturers, Professor Bill Tall, gray-bearded, with eyes too tired for truth. He said Amara was brilliant but curious about things better left alone. She'd been researching traditional beliefs about life after death for her thesis, interviewing old spiritualists around the hills. When I mentioned the grave, he went pale. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered. "They don't like outsiders asking questions." Then he slipped me a note before walking away. It had a single phrase written in shaky ink, "The Circle of 12. I didn't know what it meant yet, but the fear in his voice told me I'd just opened a forbidden door. I found Amara's best friend, Nandi, a quiet girl who avoided eye contact. Her hands fidgeted when I mentioned Amara. "She was like a sister," she said. But there was guilt in her eyes, heavy and wet. I pressed further, and tears spilled down her cheeks. "She wanted to leave them," Nandi whispered. "The circle. They said she couldn't. They said death was the only way out." My blood ran cold. She handed me an old photo of Amara with 11 others, all wearing red bracelets. "They promised power," she continued. "But after her, everything went wrong. That night, someone threw a stone through my hotel window with a note tied to it, 'Leave Makanda or join her.' I didn't leave. Instead, I listened again to my recordings. When I reached the interview with the night watchman, there was something faint beneath his words, a whisper. I slowed it down, cleaned the noise, and what came through made my chest tighten. It was a voice. A girl's voice. "He's watching," it said. "He knows." I replayed it a dozen times, trying to convince myself it was a glitch. But then I noticed something worse. The whisper wasn't recorded that night. It appeared hours later, while the recorder was locked in my bag. Someone or something had found its way into my evidence. The red cap. The watchman mentioned it, and now I was seeing it everywhere, in old photos, in CCTV stills, even on a man loitering outside my hotel. I finally confronted him one evening. He smiled like someone who'd been expecting me. "You want to know about Amara?" he said. "Then come see what she left behind." He led me through a narrow path behind the dam, where the air smelled like rust and rot. There, under the reeds, he dug up a small wooden box. Inside were burnt papers, melted candles, and a piece of red fabric tied with hair. "She tried to stop them," he said. "That's why she had to die." Before I could ask more, he turned and vanished into the mist, leaving only the red cap behind.